about musicians of the Toe River Valley, and they will hear about those musicians and also hear some samples of their music. So, without further ado, Rhonda Gouge.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here today. I'm glad to have this opportunity to share with you all this precious musical heritage that we have here in this county. And I went back and began to think about who I was going to talk about tonight. And there are several others that I'm working on as well. This is an ongoing project. It's not by any means finished yet. It's closer than it was. But I began to think about who I was going to talk about tonight, and I decided to do Gus Washburn, Clarence Green, Clarence Howard Green, Don Hoppus, and Red Wilson. And of course, there's some others that are important as well. And perhaps we could have a chance to do some more of this stuff and talk about some of the other people that are important to our musical heritage. The first gentleman is Gus Washburn, and his full name is Charles Augustus Washburn. He was born on July 4th, 1909, and I'm not really sure about this date of death. I talked with his son, Jim Washburn, and I wrote down that he died in 1984. And if anyone knows better, I stand corrected, but as of right now, I'm pretty sure that he died in 1984. He was born on Gracie Creek. He was the youngest of 10 children. And over the period of his life, Gus Washburn made a great impact on a lot of people. On local people, and on people that didn't live around here. He was one of the original founders of the Toe River Valley Blues. And he was a master at the piano. He also played guitar and he played harmonica. And according to Jim, his son, he was good at holding the attention of a crowd. And that's an important thing to be able to do, as I went up. His father was an old-time Baptist and was very active in the Mitchell County Baptist Association. This was Gus's father, so it would be Jim Washburn's grandfather. And he determined that his children would have a very good education, so he sent them to Fruitland to school. And apparently, from what I got from the interview, they boarded there, and Fruitland was a elementary through 12th grade school, or 11th grade at that time. And it later became a place for Baptists sent their people to train them how to be ministers, sort of a seminary. And his father was so strict that he didn't like any kind of music except religious music. So when Gus would come home from Fruitland, where he took piano lessons there, but when he came home from Fruitland, he was really interested in the guitar, and he would sneak out behind the barn, out in the woods somewhere, and try to learn to play the guitar. And he couldn't do that in the house because his daddy didn't like it. He didn't like frolicking. He thought that was frolicking. He didn't believe in that. So, but Gus was, because of his interest in music and his talent, he was encouraged over at Fruitland. And of course, they gave him piano lessons, and he learned to play the guitar. he learned to play the harmonica, and he would accompany his harmonica with the guitar. And you've seen these holders where they have them wrapped around their neck, it holds the harmonica, and they can play the guitar and accompany their music with that. And so that's what Gus Washburn did. I have, courtesy of Jim Washburn, a set of CDs that he made for me, and they came off of a reel-to-reel recording. It was made in 1961. And the recording is an interview and music of Gus Washburn and Clarence Green Singer. And on one of those recordings, there's a little clip of Gus Washburn playing the guitar and playing the harmonica. And he's doing the old fiddle tune, Liberty. And that's a pretty difficult piece to play. And as I listened to it, I was really impressed with how complex that was. And what a good job Gus Washburn did in playing that melody on the harmonica and the guitar. I was very impressed with that. Gus Washburn's music could be described as a combination of old-time novelty songs, comedic songs, songs from minstrel shows back in the early part of the 20th century, blues, ragtime, popular tunes from the 30s and 40s. Oh, okay. What do I mean? Okay, check.
There.
Did anybody hear what I said? No, I don't think they did. It's impossible. Okay, anyway, let me repeat what I just said. No. But Mr. Washburn's music was certainly not bluegrass. It was a lot of things. It was not bluegrass as we know it today. According to Jim Washburn, his grandfather's dislike of frolicking didn't affect his grandmother because she played banjo. So she encouraged Gus to play. So, and then Jim Washburn looked at me and said, well, you know, she was a Hollifield, and just laughed. I don't know what that means. I'm afraid to ask. I said, well, you know, she was Hollifield. So that means maybe that all Hollifields like frolicking. I don't know. I thought that was pretty good. After playing with several local musicians and many others, Gus teamed up with local fiddler and guitarist Clarence Green. Clarence lived in Kuhne, and he was an awesome musician. Together with a banjo player from Black Mountain by the name of Matt Crow, they formed the very first Toe River Valley Boys. And that was around 1941. Now there's some discussions as to the date. They're not really certain whether it was 41 or 42, and some have said 1938. So Jim Washburn sincerely believes it was in 1941, so I think I would probably myself go with that date. And Gus Washburn remained a member of the Toe River Valley Boys up until mid-70s, and he had some health issues, and he had to stop playing with the Toe River Valley Boys at that time. One of the most important contributions that Gus Washburn made was when he teamed up with Red in around 1970 and went to a place to buy some recording equipment, and they started Mayland Recording Company. They were in that together. It was a joint effort. And you know, I didn't know that for years. But they pooled their resources and they started the Mayland Recording Company. Red went ahead and fixed his garage, soundproofed the walls, and as best he could, and he made a nice little studio right there beside his house. And because of their efforts and their encouragement, there were a lot of people around here who got to record for the first time. And that was an important contribution to this area, because a lot of people would not have had that opportunity if it hadn't been for them. And I'll tell you more about the Mayland Recording Company a little bit later. Right now I'm going to do you a song called Under the Double Eagle. And I'm going to play the guitar on this. Now, Gus Washburn may have played the harmonica on this, but believe me, I do not play the harmonica. It's very, very sad when I play the harmonica. So I'm going to play the guitar on this. Do I need to turn this off? No. Okay. So bear with me as I move around and do a few things here. This is kind of like Gus Washburn's guitar style. And Under the Double Eagle sounds like this. Okay, next we're going to move on to Clarence Green. Clarence Horton, Horton Green, was born in 1894 in Avery County in the community of Cranberry. As a young child, he was influenced by local musicians, but more than anything else, he was impressed very much by a musician who was part of a traveling minstrel show, and they performed in blackface. and they did blackface comedy and sang songs, and Mr. Green was very influenced by that. He liked that a lot. From that time on, he wanted to be a musician. He took up guitar playing and fiddling. He was self-taught. And he copied the style of a fiddler and by the name of Jennings. And he speaks of this man on the recordings I have a lot, but he never says the first name of Jennings. One time he might have referred to him as Doc. He doesn't say where he's from, but he said that Jennings really fiddled. That if you played like Jennings, that was fiddling, and that's who he tried to play like. And he copied the style of guitarist Riley Puckett. On the guitar, he did a lot of bass runs, and he had a real powerful, strong strum. And I listened to him play on the recording, and I was impressed by the number of runs that he used. I was impressed by his strong picking style, by his very strong sense of rhythm, and there was no timidity, no hesitation, no sentimentality in his playing, either in his guitar playing or his fiddling. Very accurate rhythm was there, confidence in his playing and singing. His fiddling was the old-time style, and there were many notes, eighth notes, trills, musical ornaments, and some 32nd notes. They were very difficult to do on the fiddle. The recordings that I have on the CDs are a series of interviews with two UCLA graduate students who came to Mr. Green's home in 1961. One of those graduate students was Ed Kuhne, and I was familiar, when I heard the name Ed Kuhne, I was familiar with him because I had done some research on the Carter family when I was in grad school at App State, and I was familiar with a lot of Ed Kuhne's work. And he did a big project about the Carter family. Mr. Green was the fiddler for the Kuhne River Valley Boys from the 1940s on up through the 50s, and he played with many other musicians, and he traveled some, but mostly he preferred to stay close to his home by the railroad track. And I can tell you where the house is that he lived in. Some of you all might know where Bill and Jeannie Burleson's house was. It's on down below that. There's a house on down below, on down the railroad track a little ways from Bill and Jeannie's. And that was Clarence Green's home. He recorded from 1927 to 1931. He recorded things like the Johnson City Blues, the Toad River Rag. These were original compositions, and they're all on the CDs that I have. And I intend to learn these songs, these tunes. And so you'll hear in my repertoire before too long, Toad River Rag and Johnson City Blues. He recorded with the Wise Brothers, the Blue Ridge Singers, the Blue Ridge Mountain Entertainers, Birdmore and the Hot Shots, and he recorded some with Clarence Ashley, who's also known as Tom Ashley, who played a lot with Doc Watson. And Clarence Green married Hazel Willis, and they had one son, and he was a very good musician in his own right. We'll talk about him in just a moment. The fiddling style of Clarence Green is impressive to me because of the number of technically difficult pieces that he played. His influence was strong in the fiddling of Red Wilson. I used to think that Red was influenced by no one, and I know that he was not influenced by anyone really. His playing was his own, which was wonderful. But I could hear some things in Clarence Green's fiddling that reminded me of Red's fiddling. And I thought that was interesting to hear that. The interviews and the music that was recorded by Ed Kuhne and that other unnamed graduate student who never identified himself is very valuable, and it's worthy of preservation. For one thing, many of what I consider to be obscure tunes, tunes that nobody's heard before, original tunes, waltzes that had never heard before. And again, I had to learn some of these things. Mr. Washburn, Gus Washburn, and Clarence Green played these things, little clips of these things on this recording, and they were absolutely beautiful and stunning. And this is a very important piece of material that we have, and I'm going to give it to the Historical Society when I finish this research. But shortly after these interviews and the music that's recorded on the CDs, Clarence Horton Green passed away. The recordings were made in the summer of 1961, and Clarence Green passed away in October of 1961 from a heart attack. So the recordings, I think, are priceless. So now I want to play a song called Turkey in the Straw, and this is one that Clarence Green did. I certainly am not a fiddler, so you all keep that in mind, please. And but I'm just trying to play it on the fiddle a little bit, and I don't put as many notes in it as Clarence Green would have. I don't put as many notes in it as Red Wilson would have. So you bear with me while I struggle through Turkey in the Straw. Maybe I'll just put that microphone down there. What do you think? Next, we'll talk about Clarence Howard Green, who was Clarence Horton Green's son. And he did not go by Junior, he went by Clarence Howard. And he was known by the locals as Clarence Howard, not Clarence Jr. He grew up in the house down by Toe River at Penland. He was surrounded by the music. His father played, and by the music, the other musicians who visited in their home. He was born in 1945. He died in 2009. He is buried at Bear Creek. Clarence Howard Green became seriously interested in playing guitar when he was 15 or 16. When his dad died in 1961, he became a musician in the Toe River Valley Boys band. Clarence was very proficient in guitar, mandolin, banjo, and can be heard playing on some of the CD recordings of the Toe River Valley Boys that were made in the 60s. His banjo playing style was unique and very important. He used a flat pick on the 5-string banjo and was able, with a rapid back and forth, up and down pick action, to simulate Earl Scruggs' 3-finger rolls. And to hear that, it's pretty awesome, because I just cannot hardly understand how he got that kind of sound with flat pick, because it really sounds like 3-finger rolls that he's doing. His guitar and mandolin playing styles were as powerful as his father's fiddling and guitar playing. He was a master musician, and he played with the Toe River Valley Boys, according to what I have researched, until the early 1970s, when at that time he moved away. He moved to Hudson, North Carolina, and there he taught others to play and continued his musical career. And recordings of him, I think, can be heard on the internet. I looked and looked for him, but I couldn't find anything. But I'm sure if one really researched that you could hear some recordings on the internet of him. But I have a recording. This is my personal album. And these people on here are Red Wilson with a fiddle, here. Yeah, E.C. Miller. I'll let you hold it. I'll be good. Yeah, this is E.C. Miller, who was a 5-string banjo picker. This is Red Wilson with a fiddle. This is Clarence Howard Green with a mandolin. This is Gus Washburn with a guitar. And this is Cecil Burleson with a bass fiddle. And this is Charles Renfro with another guitar. And the songs on this album, the name of it is Train Time. The songs are Toe River Train, Escoto, Love and Wealth, Walking the Ties, Cold Mountains, Kansas City Railroad Blues, Come Closer, Lord, The Clinchfield Special, You're the Same Old You to Me, Train Time, When You're Only 9, Lee Highway Blues, The Wreck Above Spruce Pine, and Memories of Home. So this is a wonderful album to have, and I treasure it.
Did they write most of those?
I know that The Wreck Above Spruce Pine was written by Clarence Sr., as was, well, I'm sure. Escoto was written by May Green Riddle, with some relation to Clarence Howard and that family. She used to write all the songs. And I don't know about the others, but I've heard Red play all of these at some point in time, especially the Lee Highway Blues. So if you want to later on take a closer look at that, feel free to do so. Okay, I want to think about his contribution to the music of the area. As I think about it, and to me, his contribution would have been, of course, in his playing style, which was very, very unusual, and the legacy that he left for us younger people. I consider myself younger. To learn from, and he also was a good teacher, and I think he had several music students over in Hudson And I want to play on the banjo, Old Joe Clark, in a style that would be sort of kind of like what Clarence Green would play. And I'm going to use a flat pick. So we'll see what it sounds like. Let's see if I can do this. One, two, three, four. The next person I'm going to talk about is Doc Hoppus. Doc Walter Hoppus was born in 1883 in Mitchell County, North Carolina. He was born to a poor family, as were most Mitchell County people of that era, and he was the youngest of 7 children of James Allison and Nancy Presson Hoppus. His father abandoned the family, and he was raised by his mother. He was a self-taught musician, storyteller, and he became a master at that craft. Samples of some of his ballads he sang and the stories he told are in Muriel Shepherd's Cabins in the Laurel book, and that's available everywhere. I know that some of y'all may probably have a copy of that. There's a story told by Mr. Hoppus in the book which tells why his family became strong Republicans. I don't know if any of you have ever read that or not. And why they intended to remain Republicans. So I want to read just a little excerpt from the book, and it won't take very long to do that. Doc Hoppus, the son of a Union soldier, says, this is page 58 in the book, by the way, and this is Doc's words, "It makes me mad to even think of the home guard for the way they done my daddy and my grandmammy. When the war come, they drove off all the men into one army or the other, and then after a while they said they had to have a home guard to take care of the women and children. It was a militia they raised up, but they didn't care for them. They took from them. They was the hatefulest, thievingest bunch there was. Down at Jim Bailey's, they come in and found a little cloth in the loom Aunt Polly was weaving to make John some clothes, and they cut it out and took it with them. If a family hadn't a thing to depend on but their cow's milk, they'd kill her for beef right there in the yard and leave them with nothing. My daddy was Allison Hoppus. That was the son of Eve Hoppus that's buried with Yankee soldiers at Knoxville. His pappy was Adam Hoppus that came from across the water in Ireland. When he come in this country, he married old Link's daughter and heired all the Grassy Creek land from him. But he lost it again, putting up money on slaves. My granddaddy seen hard times after Grandpap went with the Union. She was a Buchanan, sister to Louis Buchanan, that was my wife's grandpap. This here militia know Grandpap was with the Union, but they suspicioned he was home laying out. One day they come and got Grandma and said they'd make her tell where he was so they could get him. She told them the truth, all she knowed. He was gone to the war and she hadn't seen him the more than they had. They wouldn't believe her and kept at her until finally they dragged her out to the fence and lifted up the top rail where it sits, alternating one on top of the other at the joints, and put her fingers in between and walked on the rails. They thought then that she'd have to tell, but she couldn't tell what she didn't know. When she was give out and they got tired of that, they picked on my daddy that was just a little boy. He had a great big pet dog, and they figured he'd tell anything to keep him from hurting his dog. Of course, he couldn't tell neither. Then they said if he wouldn't tell, they'd make him chop up his dog with an axe. And that's what they done. He had to hack him up into pieces on the doorstone to the house. When I heard him tell that, when I was growing up, I turned Republican right then, and I've been so ever since. Two of us children was Democrats and two Republicans, so we just killed each other's votes regular, of course. Okay, now focusing back on the music, many people would come to the Hoppus home near the Esteto side. And they'd come to hear him play and sing and tell stories. And Miss Lucy Morgan, the founder of the Penland School of Crafts, loved Doc's music and his storytelling. And many times, she would take a group of people who'd come to the school to visit or had come to learn, and she wanted them to experience the mountain culture. And she would take them to the Hoppus house for entertainment. In 1933, Miss Lucy Morgan honored the music and storytelling of Doc Hoppus by taking him to the Chicago World's Fair. And he went there to help represent the Penland School of Crafts and the culture and music of the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina. And that must have been a very exciting trip for Mr. Hoppus. And I have had the privilege to know personally some members of Doc Hoppus' family. His granddaughter, Reba Hole, married Roger Willis, who was a close relative of my mom. My parents and Roger and Reba were very close friends for years and years. And when I was a child, about 4 or 5, we visited many times in the home of Clarence and Myrtle Hall. And we went there with Roger and Reba, and Myrtle Hall was Doc Hoppus' daughter. Reba's grandmother, Doc's wife, was living at that time. And she was there. And I remember I was about 4, and the first time we went there with Roger and Reba, Mrs. Hoppus was sitting in a chair telling stories. So it was not only Doc that told stories, it was his wife told stories too. So she was sitting there with a snuff can, and she had a stick about that long. And she'd take that stick and she'd go round and round in that snuff can and stick it in her mouth. And she'd just go right on talking I remember being absolutely amazed. I'd never seen anybody do that before. And she kept trying to get me to come close to her and see her and talk to her, and I wouldn't go. I was afraid of her. But I was afraid of old women. Now, I don't know why, but I used to go with my grandmother Willis up to see Mother Bartlett, my great-grandmother. And she was white-headed, and she would be sitting on the porch, and I remember screaming and pitching a fit because I didn't want us to go up there. I was afraid of Mother Bartlett. And I was afraid of Grandmommy Willis, my granddaddy Jeff's mother. And the reason I was afraid of her, she had white hair and it kind of stuck out frizzy. And she would look at me, she had paws and her head would shake. And she'd say, "Come here to me." No! And so I ran the other way. And so it took me several years to get over being afraid of them, but I did eventually. Doc's family, well, I gotta tell you this other thing about the Hollises and the Halls. They had, Clarence and Myrtle Hall had a pump organ, an old-time pump organ in their house. And I remember being impressed because Rita got on that thing and her feet were flying and she's playing the fire out of that thing. So I was impressed with that. Doc's family was greatly influenced by his music and storytelling. Rita was always singing and playing piano. She was always encouraging others to play. She encouraged me to play. She encouraged me to sing. She bought the first banjo I ever had. She bought it for me for my birthday. She bought me a bass guitar. So she was interested in me and encouraged me to play and sing, and they were always singing at the house or at her house, and Mom and Reba and Roger and sometimes Bobby Thomas and sometimes Reba's brother, Walter Hall, sang in a quartet. So I remember those days and they're special to me. Doc's great-grandsons, the sons of Walter Hall, who was Rita's brother, and Irene McKinney Hall, are still good friends of mine today. If you want to hear a good story, hear a good tale, or sing a good gospel song, just spend some time with Wally Hall. He is a mess if there was ever a mess. If you need a good friend to help you and give you some words of encouragement, or just talk to you, Wally's brother Keith Hall is a good guy to know, and he works down at P&R store. And we always have a good time talking together and reminiscing about old times. If you want to meet a gentle soul, a kind and loving young man, just introduce yourself to Bradley Willis, Roger and Rita's son. And he's another one of Doc's great-grandsons. Personally, I feel as though Doc's music and his kindness and his love of life and storytelling were passed down in his family to his great-grandsons and their families, and indirectly to me through his granddaughter, Rita. I'm going to play some tunes on the banjo that are old-time tunes. I'm going to play a medley. I'm going to play Angela and the Baker. I'm going to play, thank you, Bonaparte's Retreat, and Tomorrow is Another Day. And I'm a scrub style picker, but I do some old-time two-finger picking. Now, I would say that Doc probably played with two fingers or maybe a clawhammer style. I don't know for sure how he played. But these are some songs that he may have played for sure. So give me just a moment to get tuned in.
I thought she was going to say, I do a little two-finger, but I'm no old-time banjo picker, because everything she starts to play, have you noticed, she's no this or no that, we all know better. Your idea of does that sound good, and my idea of does that sound good, is probably worlds apart. And the piano that's down in the picnic parlor, didn't Reba?
Yes, she gave it that. It was her piano at home, and when I moved my teaching studio to the picnic parlor there in Lee, beside the store, I was up at Reba's and she said, "You want my piano?" I said, "What?" She said, "You want my piano?" I said, "Well, I was going to move my old piano down there." She said, "Oh, just, you can have that." And I said, "I don't play anymore." So I have Reba's piano. Among some plaques and things that she gave me.
Those notes.
Those notes and different things. Let's see if I can get to here.
You need my pocket knife?
No, I need to set glasses.
Oh, that was gonna get old. Don't stop too abruptly, doesn't it?
I'm just not used to holding a microphone, so this is strange. Next, I'm going to talk about Red Wilson, and that's the last musician that we'll do tonight. Well, what can I say about Red Wilson? All who knew him and Marie loved them dearly. Their home was an open, welcoming, relaxing place where you were always made to feel special and loved. There was no pretending with Red and Marie. You didn't have to put on airs. You just went there and were accepted for who you were. Red was born in Avery County. His full name was Oscar Oliver Wilson. He was born in 1920. He died on June 6, 2005. His contributions to the music and the musicians of Mitchell County exceeds the boundaries of one's imagination or expectations. First of all, he was an open, friendly person. He was willing to share his tunes and songs with anyone who was interested. He was kind-hearted and generous to a fault. He wanted to carry on the tradition of playing music, and he tried to instill the importance of carrying on that musical tradition in others, and especially in people who were younger than he was. He was an encourager. He encouraged musicians of all ages to practice and to strive to be better. Red lived a simple life, and he taught others by his own example to see the beauty of simple things and to love them. I remember many times going to their home, and if Red wasn't there, I'd just sit down and talk with Marie. And I had as good a time with her, just talking, as I did with him. It was just wonderful to be in their home. Red's musical career was long and interesting. He was one of only three survivors of his battalion in a World War II battle. I think it happened in Italy. When he returned home, he returned to a long stay in a hospital and a long recovery. He almost lost both his legs, but fortunately the doctors were able to save him. He came to Ledger Community with his father. And one time several years ago I asked him how come he got him to come to Ledger, and he said that he came with his daddy. He said, my daddy was a sawyer, a sawmill man, and they were looking for timber cut. And it was in Ledger that he met Marie Green. She was the daughter of Will and Bessie Norman Green. And when he saw Marie, he fell in love. And needless to say, Red and Marie married soon after that. And when they were married, Oscar was still in a wheelchair. They made their home in Ledger. And because he was a disabled vet, that allowed him to be able to pursue music more intensely or thoroughly than he would have been able to do if he had been working a full-time job. He told me the tale of how he heard fiddling when he was a small child from his dad, from the Ledfords of Glen Eyre community. His dad was a half-brother to fiddling Steve Ledford, to Wayne and Taft and Will, and what's the other one's name? Charlie. And that whole musical Ledford family. According to Red, they would go to the Ledford home place where fiddlers would gather on the weekend and play and swap tunes. And many local musicians came, as well as fiddlers and guitar and banjo players from outside the area. even as far away as Nashville and Knoxville, Tennessee, and Bristol. And he well remembered fiddling Arthur Smith, who used to be, years and years ago, a star on the Grand Ole Opry. And fiddling Arthur Smith came and stayed at the Leffers many times, and he would stay a week at a time sometimes, between his appearances on the Opry and his showing days. He declared to me, when we were talking one day, that fiddling Arthur Smith stole the tune Red Apple Rag from his dad, recorded it in Nashville, and claimed it as his own. And I believe that to be true, and nothing but the truth. Red Apple Rag is a great tune, and I learned to play that tune from Red many years ago. Red shared with me that when he heard these fiddles, as a boy, he thought it was the prettiest thing he'd ever heard in his life, and he wanted to play. So when he grew up, he just kept working at it until he could play a tune that sounded like music. And I think the first tune he played, or to play, was Red Wing, and I'm going to let Kathy share with you what Red told her about learning to play Red Wing.
He said that he had permission to use his grandfather's fiddle for one day, and that would have been Waits Ledford, and he only had it for one day, and he said that he took the fiddle home, and his mother, I don't know if she hummed or sang or whistled, anyway, she went over that tune with him the whole day, over and over and over and over. And he said he got so frustrated that he just almost cried, but finally he got it because he had to take the fiddle home the next day. So he mastered Red Wing that day.
That's a tough tune to learn as a starting tune, too. So, Red began playing after the war at the Carolina Theater in Spruce Pine. And he played there many times, and he also did a stint with Wade Maynard, and he played with many other musicians that were famous, and maybe some that were infamous. During the 50s, Red continued to play his music on radio, and he had a regular show on WTOE when it went on the air in 1955. In 1961, Clarence Horton Green died, and we spoke about that earlier, and that left an open spot for a fiddler with the Toe River Valley Boys. No one could have better filled that position than Red Wilson. So he became the fiddler for the Toe River Valley Boys. And not taking anything away from the other musicians that were central to that group, and really the core of that group. But Red kind of became the standout musician of the Toe River Valley Boys. So I know that for myself, when I thought about Toe River Valley Boys, I thought about Red. And I think many other people would share my feelings about that. And that's not to take anything away from any of the others. During the 60s, Red sometimes joined up with female singers, one of whom was Alice Wyatt, and she now is Alice Powers. And Alice still sings and plays and has been a regular performer and show organizer for many years at Young's Mountain Music. And I know that Alice sang with Red's son on the radio. She, I think, still does some stuff at Young's Mountain Music, and that's on Highway 19 near Crabtree, right at the county line. In 1962, Red went to Atlanta with, I think, Alice and maybe another lady or two, and he played a 45 record that they made down there, and they cut a single. And when you say 45 record, kids nowadays don't know what that is. But anyway, he played it for him. The title of it was Let Me Be Your Satellite. And I was very impressed with the vocal harmonies and the music arrangements. They were outstanding. And I wonder if that is still around somewhere. I don't know if Ann has that or whoever. But in the mid-1960s, my mother's youngest sister, Margaret, began dating Roger Wilson. At the time, I was not too happy about that because he was taking my Margaret time. And she was my specialist Aunt Margaret, and I just loved her. And I was kind of aggravated because she went off with Roger on a date. And I would think, well, why does she want to go him? What's he got? What does he know? I didn't like that too much. But anyway, when I found out he was Red Wilson's son, I was thrilled. So they married in October of 1966, and I was 11 years old. And I was interested in guitars and fiddles and banjos and most things musical. Didn't play anything except piano a little bit. But in December of 1967, I received the best present I ever got. And that was a guitar. The following summer, I was invited to spend a week with Margaret and Roger, and they lived in a little house right down below Red and Marie. So I had my in to Red Wilson. To me, he was as famous as any Grand Ole Opry star. He was the caliber of Hank Williams or Earl Scruggs and Lester Flatt. And just to be honest with you, he's still with that caliber with me still today. But anyway, he was very kind to me. I would ask Margaret, I would say, Margaret, can I go up to Oscar and Marie's a little while? You think it'd be all right? She'd say, why? Yeah, go on. So I'd go wag him a little guitar up there, and I would go in the house, and he would take his fiddle down. And he'd sit, and he'd fiddle tune after tune, and I could hardly put chords together, but he was so patient. And he would say, you're going to be a good musicianer. That's what he said, musicianer one of these days. Well, I believed it, you know, that thrilled me to death. And I was surrounded by so much love there in that home. And it instilled with me a deep love for them, a deep respect for them that never left. And it increased over the years. Red always played with me. He played music with me, and he would tell me that I was going to be good. He would encourage me to practice. He would say, you have to practice, or you won't be any good. From him, I learned to be patient, because he was patient with me. And I didn't realize it at that time, but I was in training to do what I do now. And that is to be patient as music students come to me and ask to learn how to play a tune on the guitar, or learn how to play the mandolin, or a tune on the fiddle. So I learned that patience and that perseverance from Red Wilson. Because, he stayed right with me. The Toe River Valley Boys played many places over the years, but two of their regular gigs were the Square Dance at Pelham and the Square Dance at Geneva Hall in Switzerland. And they played there regularly, and it meant a lot to a lot of people. Right now, I'm going to let Kathy share a little bit about her experience with Red and being in their home and how much it meant to her.
I was a little bit older when I started trying to learn to play guitar. I was in my late 40s, and that's why I say thank you, Red Wilson, for teaching Rhonda to be patient, because what she told me one day was that you can teach old dogs new tricks, but it sure does take a lot longer. And I thought that was a compliment, but anyway. before Rhonda had an opening for me as a student, I'd gone out to Maitland Community College and taken a little beginning guitar class, borrowed somebody's guitar just to see if I thought I could do anything with it. And my husband was a physician and he was Red's doctor, and so they were talking about it. And he said, well, tell her to come on out to the house and I'll teach her how to play the guitar. So every either Tuesday or Thursday night, for the last 2 years of his life, I got to go out and play music with Oscar Wilson and visit with Marie. And that's an experience I wouldn't take $1 million for. It was fantastic. And like Rhonda said, the home was open and he loved to tell all kinds of stories. He loved to tell jokes. And there was one song that we did that is called The Wreck of the Old 97, and we'd do that about every week, and just as sure as we'd start to do it, we'd say, now have we ever done that before? But he had a twinkle in his eye right up till the last time I saw him. He's a great guy.
Kathy and I were talking about that today, and we got a little bit teary-eyed because of the memories, the good memories that we have of being with Red and Marie. In the 60s, the Toe River Valley boys were, I guess you would say, red hot. Red's fiddling became more, and this is my opinion, but it became more like bluegrass fiddling instead of old-time fiddling. And I think that it had to be that way because he was in the kind of setting he was in. He was with a banjo player who was excellent. His name was E.C. Miller. He's from Elizabeth, and then E.C. would come over to Red's house, and he actually taught some banjo lessons there. And E.C. was a really hard-driving banjo picker. Played Scruggs just about as good as Scruggs played Scruggs. And I think Red's fiddling sort of changed and became more aggressive during those years. He was a very solid fiddler with the Toe River Valley boys. Of course, during those years, we talked about this before, there was Red Wilson, Clarence Howard Green, E.C. Miller, Gus Washburn, Charles Renfro, and Cecil Burleson. And there may have been some others in the band during that time that I don't know about, but later Dempsey Sons played the bass. And in the 70s, occasionally I would fill in when somebody couldn't make a local gig. I know I played a few square dances with Red and had a good time. One of the most important and lasting contributions that Red Wilson made was when he and Gus Washburn teamed up to establish the Maitland Recording Company. And we talked a little bit about that before, when Red changed his garage into a real nice recording facility. And he recorded many local artists around here that would never have had a chance to record if it had not been for Red. A lot of gospel groups came there to record their music and to make records. Red's studio session guitarist was me, myself, and I. So he called me lots of times. He'd say, come and put the guitar on this group, on this track, for this group. Or come and put a bass track down for this group. They really need a good bassist. So I had the opportunity to play at Maitland recording a lot. And I played on many local recordings of gospel groups, and it was, again, training for me. It was an experience that was priceless. And again, it was Red's generosity, his kindness, and his patience that afforded me that opportunity. And I recorded a lot of stuff at Maitland Studio. It was projects of my own. They were just things that I wanted to record. And Red recorded all this stuff at no charge to me. And he stayed right with me, and we would work sometimes far into the night, getting everything just right. In high school, I was a member of a folk group called the Young Mountaineers. So I'm in the 10th grade at this time. The Young Mountaineers consisted of Randall Willis, John Craig, Billy June Norman, Holifield, Rhonda Gouge, and myself. We were the Young Mountaineers. We were the first group to ever record at my studio. And I still have some 45 records of the Young Mountaineers. We did 2 original songs that were written by Randall and myself. One side was Life is a Game, the other side was Black and White. And the record, I got Daddy to look out at his house to see if he could find them. He couldn't find them. So I didn't have time to look at my house because Daddy said he wouldn't want to go out there and look anyway because it's too much stuff. So they look like this. Let me hold it up a little bit. Look like this. And this is actually David Boone. Some of y'all may know David Boone. He's from Yancey County up around Pensacola. And he does a lot of wood carving. And back in the day, he played a lot of music with Ronnie Robinson. And this is a recording that David Boone made years ago in Red's studio. The title of the song is Something Easy to Cry To. And the other side is What Just a Little Bottle Can Do. And I didn't even really know I had that, but it was in amongst all my stuff. If someone had the opportunity to search out all the folks in this area and other places that Red recorded and that were encouraged and helped and inspired by him, it would be an astonishing number of people. I, for one, will forever owe him a debt of gratitude. And I will always look back at my time with Red and Marie with love and fondness and a thankful heart. Marie, as some of you probably know, recently passed on and is now with Red. And I will one day see them again. And I hope that Marie and I can sit down and just talk and talk and talk and not have to worry about what time it is. Because many times I would get to talking to Marie and the phone would ring and Mom would say, "Where are you at?" I said, "I'm still at bed, Marie." Or we'd start playing some tunes and Red would be talking and I'd be sitting there just playing and it'd be 12 o'clock. And so maybe one day that I can sit down and talk to Marie and sit down and play some tunes with Red again in our heavenly home. And I look forward to seeing them again. I want to play 2 songs that are original compositions of Red's. One is Marie's Waltz. The other one is the Margaret Randolph Waltz. And I will tell you a little bit more about that when I play it. But I'm going to start with Marie's Waltz. And they played this at Marie's funeral. Bruce Green did a beautiful job. And I'd like to give you sort of a version of that. The next tune I'm going to do for you is one entitled Margaret Randolph Waltz. And this has a story behind it. Red told me one time that he was up at Penland, at the church that's down below Penland School, and it has a graveyard out in front of it. And there was a tombstone out there that said, Margaret Randolph Waltz. That was the lady's name. So he said he began to think about that. He thought, oh, that'd make a good fiddle tune. So he came home, and this is the tune that he came up with for Margaret Randolph Waltz. G. Get on the note here. 1, 2, 3. One last little thing I'll share with you. I think I mentioned before, this project is still going on. There are other musicians who deserve to be remembered and recognized. And I'm going to name a few of them. Steve Ledford, Christy T, Berlin Ledford, Wayne Ledford, Terry McKinney, Nathan Stewart, Bob Lomanek, Carson Gibson, Art Uphold, Charlie Hensley, and I could go on, Junior Carter, Mike Carter, Darrell Pittman. I could go on naming names of people that I've known in my lifetime and had an opportunity to play music with, and it's all been a part of my musical education. And this is valuable, valuable stuff. I hope you've enjoyed tonight, and maybe we can do this again sometime and honor some of these other folks. Thank you for coming so much.